Watch. Joe Rogan mocks Neil Young over return to Spotify. That's even if he returned. Last I checked, he's still not on Spotify. Of course, I don't care. Neil Young is not someone that I really listen to, and I listen to all types of music. I listen to country, I listen to hip hop, of course, rap. I listen to country, I listen to rock and roll, old school '80s rock, all types of music because I make my own beats. I'm a producer. You know, I make music and stuff like that in my free time for fun. So I listen to a lot of music because I sample a lot of music and stuff like that. And Neil Young is not on my list at all. Then he left Spotify and no one cared. So we go talk a little bit about that. We go show. I'll show the clip in a little bit of Joe Rogan mocking Neil Young. But before we get started, go ahead and hit that like button, share this out so we can get this information out there. Subscribe if you're not already a subscriber, and hit that alarm bell so you know when I'm putting out new stuff. Also, check out my link tree in the description. It has a link to my Patreon. That's where I talk about things I can't talk about here. There's also a link to my Instagram and my merch store. Also, check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for news as well. I promise I'll put some more articles out this weekend. I've just been really, really busy. Um, with doing my therapist work and stuff like that. But let's talk about this news. Now this comes from Zero Hedge, but this is actually Steve Watson from his website Modernity News, and he reports that podcast king Joe Rogan took a swipe at rock grandpa Neil Young Thursday after Young announced earlier this week that he was returning his music to Spotify following a 2-year hiatus in protest of COVID disinformation on Rogan's output. And it's just a clip of this just is a clip here of Paul Watson going through giving his take on it. But Young, who reportedly took a 60% revenue hit from the move, while Spotify did not. Wow, a 60%. Wow, that's a lot. Initially published a post on his website Tuesday, begrudgingly announcing he was returning to the quote low res platform, and that's funny. Wow, 60%. That is a lot of money. Imagine losing 60% of your pay, all because you are an idiot and you follow the party line. I mean, this is ridiculous. And it come to find out everything Joe Rogan been saying about the whole, the jabby jabs and how to protect yourself from the pandemic. It all turned out to be true. I mean, it all turned out to be true. And now he's still looking like an idiot. But rather than admit he may have been wrong, which he was, or that he can't realistically stay off the world's biggest platform, Young claimed that because all the other platforms like Apple and Amazon also allow content from Joe Rogan and other so-called, quote, disinformation peddlers, he may as well just go back on Spotify. And notice how he doesn't talk about the so-called disinformation 2 years later, which actually turned out to be true. And Paul Watson is right. Why just don't admit? Why you can't be like, you know what, y'all? He wouldn't get much of a backlash if he was just told the truth. Just was like, you know what, y'all? I messed up. I thought I was right pertaining to this stuff. I was wrong. I'm sorry. I apologize. Please accept my sincere apology, and I'm going back on Spotify. No, he couldn't do that. He had to he had to make up this excuse. So he said Spotify, the number one streamer of low res music in the world, Spotify, where you get less quality than we made, will now be home of my music again. Like, why even say that? Why even say all of that? He's just a bitter person. Neil Young is a bitter old man. He goes on to say, my decision comes as music services Apple and Amazon have started serving the same disinformation podcast features I had opposed at Spotify. I cannot just leave Apple and Amazon like I did Spotify because my music would have very little streaming outlet to music lovers at all. So I have returned to Spotify in sincere hopes that Spotify sound quality will improve and the people will be able to hear and feel all the music as we made it. Cobuzz and Title. I'm not familiar with Cobuzz or however you pronounce it. And Title, where my music is presented, are all high res as well. I hope all you millions of Spotify users enjoy my songs. Again, I will not listen to Neil Young. They will now all be there for you except for the full sound we created. Hopefully, Spotify will turn to high res as the answer and serve all the music to everyone. Spotify, you can do it. Really be number one in all ways. You have the music and the listeners. Start with limited high res tier and build from there. Thanks for your support, folks. Neil. Wow. And Rogan addressed Young's actions during a conversation about COVID vaccine, stating, quote, by the way, Neil Young came back to Spotify. Congratulations, Neil. Rogan added, his excuse was he said that because all of the platforms are now allowing my disinformation, it should just go back on Spotify. Two, great to know you got some ethics, Rogan added in an open swipe at the Canadian rocker. So let's check it out. Oh, Neil Young's Canadian. That makes a lot of sense now. Now I understand. Here we go. But I digress. Not all, and I'm not saying that Canadians are a monolith, but I will say an overwhelming majority of them have no problem with tyranny. I mean, just look at the new stuff that Trudeau is pushing, where you can't criticize transgenderism, you can't criticize Jewish people or anything like that, or you're gonna get minimum 5. You're gonna get 5 years in prison. But again, I digress. Let's play this clip here from Joe Rogan.
Like a super pro tennis player who's going to go play in the U.S. Open, but no, maybe not, right?
Well, that was the Vax thing.
That was the Vax.
By the way, Neil Young came back to Spotify. Congratulations, Neil.
Yeah, well, that's good news.
And his excuse was, he said that because all of the platforms are now allowing my disinformation, so that he'll just go back on Spotify too.
Oh, yeah.
Great to know you got some ethics.
Yeah, well, everybody's doing it these days. Disinformation.
Funny, that's funny. And people blasted him on it. People been blasting him on the hypocrisy. News articles have surfaced in the thousands about how Young is returning to Spotify, and many on social media have labeled him a hypocrite or worse. Francis Foster tweeted out, Spotify can have Neil Young or Joe Rogan. You can't have both. Turns out all you have to do is wait a couple of years for Neil to capitulate, and then you can. Hilarious. The 5 times August tweeted out, just so we're clear on this, Neil Young pulled his music from Spotify over the seriousness of Joe Rogan spreading, quote, dangerous misinformation. But now that this, quote, dangerous misinformation is on even more platforms, Young has decided to, not to pull his music, but from the other, you get the point there. I'm not going to click on Twitter just for that. But now, Young has deleted the initial announcement post from his website, and his music has still not appeared on Spotify, indicating that he has changed his mind again. I wouldn't doubt it. He's been getting blasted from people about the hypocrisy. And when previously asked by a fan in a letter if he would ever go back to Spotify, Young responded, why would I? It sounds like sounds like crap, basically. And Young also revealed that he asked Spotify to put disclaimers on Joe Rogan's content, but they initially refused to do so. Then he advised that such warnings could be difficult to find and follow. Spotify did put disclaimers on Rogan's content after the furor, but they do not appear to be doing it anymore. Here we go. He said, also, I'm curious, what is it going to take for you to put your music back on Spotify? He said, why would I? Sounds like crap. He said, would they have to cancel Joe Rogan? I will not be back to Spotify. The sound is no good, and there are many alternatives available that sound much better. What about if they put disclaimers on the content? He said, I asked them to do so. So, I mean, again, his stuff is still not on the platform as of right now. He's losing 60% of his revenue because he's an idiot, and he refused to do research on his own and find out that everything Rogan been saying has been actually true. Even outlets like CNN had to come out later and say, Rogan is actually true about everything. I'm not going to talk about what he was actually correct on. Y'all know what I'm talking about. Let's just say horse. But let me know what you think about this. Leave your comments down below. Like, share, and subscribe. And check out jjthepsychotherapist.com for the latest in news. Until next time, peace.